The snow had started just after midnight. By the time Chicago fell completely silent beneath the storm, Daniel Harper was driving home alone with both hands tight on the steering wheel of his old black SUV. Streetlights glowed through the thick snowfall like fading lanterns, and the roads were nearly empty, except for the occasional snowplow passing by. Daniel was 36, a single father, and exhausted after a long shift at the warehouse near the edge of the city. All he wanted was to get home to his 8-year-old son, Ethan, who was staying the night with Daniel's older sister, because of the storm. The heater hummed softly inside the car while snowflakes hit the windshield in endless waves. As Daniel turned into his quiet neighborhood, something caught his attention near the front steps of the small blue house next door. A purse. It lay half-covered in snow beside the porch light. Daniel slowed the SUV and stared at it for a moment. The house belonged to Olivia Carter, the woman who had moved into the neighborhood 6 months earlier. He didn't know much about her, except that she lived alone, worked remotely, and always smiled politely whenever they crossed paths. Parked near the curb and stepped out into the freezing air, the wind bit through his jacket. Immediately, snow crunched beneath his boots as he picked up the purse. It looked expensive, and from the way it had fallen near the steps, he guessed she had dropped it recently. Daniel walked to the porch and knocked on the door. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the porch light brightened, and the door slowly opened. Olivia stood there wearing soft grey pajamas beneath a cream-colored sweater. Her dark brown hair was slightly messy, like she had been asleep moments earlier, and her green eyes widened in surprise when she saw him standing there in the middle of the storm. "Daniel?" she asked softly. "Oh my God, it's freezing outside. Is everything okay?" He lifted the purse slightly. "I think this is yours," he said. She looked down and immediately covered her mouth in shock. "Oh, wow. Yes, that's mine." She laughed nervously. "I must have dropped it earlier when I brought groceries inside." Daniel handed it to her. "Good thing nobody else found it." Olivia smiled warmly. "Seriously, thank you." Most people would have ignored it. The icy wind rushed between them again. Olivia glanced toward the dark street and then back at him. "You drove home in this weather." "Didn't have much choice." "You're freezing," she said. "Come inside for a minute." Daniel hesitated. "I don't want to bother you." "You're not bothering me." Before he could answer, she stepped aside and opened the door wider. Warm air wrapped around him the second he entered. The house smelled faintly of vanilla candles and fresh coffee. Soft jazz music played somewhere in the background, and a small Christmas tree still stood glowing near the living room window, even though January had already begun. "It's cozy in here," Daniel admitted. Olivia smiled while locking the door behind him. "Well, somebody has to make winter survivable." She motioned toward the couch. "Sit down. He'll make coffee." Daniel removed his snow-covered jacket and sat carefully on the edge of the couch while she disappeared into the kitchen. A few minutes later, she returned carrying 2 steaming mugs. The storm outside grew louder, snow tapping against the windows while the fireplace flickered quietly beside them. Olivia handed him a mug. "Careful, it's hot." "Thanks." For a while, they simply talked. At first it was small things, the weather, the neighborhood, work. Then somehow the conversation became easier. Daniel told her about Ethan and what it had been like raising a child alone after losing his wife years earlier. Olivia listened quietly, her expression soft and understanding. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Daniel shrugged gently. "Life moves on." Olivia stared down into her coffee for a moment before speaking again. "I know what loneliness feels like, too." He looked at her curiously. "My parents passed away when I was younger," she said. "And after my last relationship ended, I just kind of stopped letting people get close." The room became quiet except for the crackling fireplace. Outside, the snowstorm had become almost violent now. Olivia stood near the window and frowned. "You honestly shouldn't drive anywhere tonight," she said. "The roads are terrible." Daniel glanced outside and sighed. "She was right, you can stay here," she added carefully. "The guest room's already warm. And honestly, it'd be nice not being alone during a storm like this." Daniel smiled slightly. "You sure?" "Completely sure." For the first time in a long while, he felt something unexpected inside him. Comfort. That night, Daniel slept in the guest room, while snow buried the entire neighborhood outside. The next morning, Sunlight reflected across endless white streets. Daniel woke to the smell of pancakes and coffee. When he walked into the kitchen, Olivia stood by the stove laughing softly while trying to flip a pancake that had folded in ice. "Half. Don't judge me," she said immediately. Daniel laughed. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't going to. They ate breakfast together while snow continued falling gently outside the windows, and somehow after that morning, things changed naturally. Daniel started helping Olivia shovel snow after work. Olivia began baking cookies for Ethan. Soon, the little blue house next door no longer felt separate from Daniel's life. Weeks turned into months. Coffee conversations became dinner dates. Dinner dates became long evening walks. And slowly, without either of them planning it, loneliness disappeared from both their lives. One autumn evening, nearly a year later, Daniel stood beneath golden trees in a quiet park, holding a small velvet ring box in his trembling hands. Olivia stared at him in complete shock. "You once invited me inside because of a snowstorm," he said softly. "But honestly, you saved me long before I even realized I needed saving." Tears filled her eyes. Daniel smiled. "I love you, Olivia Carter, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you." She laughed through tears before nodding quickly. Yes, 6 months later, surrounded by close friends, soft music and falling winter snow, Daniel and Olivia were married in a small church outside the city. Ethan stood beside them, smiling proudly, while snowflakes drifted outside the stained glass windows. And every January after that, whenever the first snowfall arrived, Olivia would smile at Daniel and tease him softly. "Good thing I dropped that purse.